U.S. Air Force install new engines on the B-52 bomber to war preparatio. America's fleet of B-52H Stratofortress nuclear bombers are on track to outlast their engines, and the planes need new ones to remain viable past 2030. The U.S. Air Force, which received its first B-52H during the Kennedy administration, wants to replace existing engines with cheaper, more power ones to keep the lumbering jets flying all the way into the 2040s. The B-52H is the last of the family of B-52 Stratofortress bombers to remain in U.S. service. The first H model was delivered in 1961, and 76 of the original 102 bombers still fly with U.S. Air Force active and reserve units. The bombers have a range of 8,800 miles, giving them the ability to conduct strategic attack, close air support, air interdiction, offensive counter-air and maritime operations worldwide. The bombers are capable of carrying both nuclear and conventional cruise missiles and are set to carry the new long-range standoff nuclear-tipped cruise missile in the future. The B-52H fleet is still using its original Pratt & Whitney TF-33-103 engines, 2 of which hang off each of the bomber's 4 engine stations, giving each aircraft 8 such engines that combine to generate up to 136,000 pounds of thrust. As powerful as they are, the Pratt & Whitneys are growing old and increasingly difficult to maintain, and they have missed half a century of aircraft engine development. At $69,708 an hour to fly, the B-52 is an expensive bird to keep in the air. New engines could generate even more thrust, require less maintenance, and cost less per hour to fly. Aviation Week and Space Technology says that the Air Force wants to replace the TF-33-103 with a new commercial engine, like those used on commercial airliners, with a 20 to 40% improvement in fuel consumption compared to the TF-33. The new engine should also generate even more electricity for onboard systems, perhaps powering defensive lasers to shoot down air-to-air missiles. In the past, the Air Force has toyed with the idea of consolidating the number of engines to 4 to save weight and simplify things, but 8 engines will provide more thrust and electrical power. The Air Force has had on-again, off-again plans to re-engine the B-52H fleet for decades, but the service's 2018 budget finally provides funding for an early study. According to AvWeek, new engines would go on the first 10 bombers around 2026, with the remaining 66 bombers refitted in the 2028 to 2034 time frame. The bombers would ideally stick around in Air Force service until 2050 or so, making them approximately 90 years old at their time of retirement. After several months of delays, the U.S. Air Force is hoping to release a request for proposals for new B-52 bomber engines by the end of 2019, once the service gets the chance to solidify its solicitation and answer congressional concerns. But at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, B-52 maintainers are hungry for new motors that will hopefully lessen the time it takes to diagnose and fix engine problems. If I was to prioritize the systems from a maintainer's point of view, in my personal opinion, not the Air Force's obviously, but replacing the engines first and foremost would have the most positive impact on the maintenance community, said Lieutenant Colonel Tiffany Arnold, 2nd Maintenance Squadron Commander. Arnold spoke with journalist and Defense News contributor Jeff Bolton during a visit to Barksdale AFB. Each B-52 uses 8 TF-33 engines to fly, which means maintainers spend a lot of time ensuring each engine functions properly. And when more than one engine needs repairs, that entails more work for the personnel that are already performing multiple assessments, Arnold said. The Air Force believes it can reduce fuel burn and cut down the number of hours needed to maintain the B-52 by swapping the TF-33s with 8 new, off-the-shelf engines. It's a discussion that's been going on for more than 30 years, said Alan Williams, Deputy B-52 Program Element Monitor with Air Force Global Strike Command. The B-52 was going to be retired in 1996, and then the date slid to 2000, then it slid to 2003, then it went finally to 2040, and now it's 2050, he said in an August interview. The extended life has finally given us the green light for upgrades we've been looking at for 20 or 30 years, but could never get funded. The RFP, which was originally scheduled for release in March, has been pushed to the end of 2019, he added. A contract award to a single engine manufacturer is scheduled about a year later. Once that happens, the winning engine will move through a typical design and test phase, culminating in the integration of new engines on 2 B-52s for flight tests around 2023 or 2024. Williams acknowledged the delay was partially caused by House lawmakers' concerns about the Air Force's acquisition strategy. At issue is the service's decision to award contracts for prototyping work before requirements and cost estimates were finalized, and the House Armed Service Committee wants to require the Air Force to submit additional documentation on the schedule and cost of the effort. Right now they are working through the process, trying to answer all of the questions that both leadership in the Air Force have, and Congress has, Williams said. There is no particular reason for the delay, other than just getting through the wickets. B-52 prime contractor Boeing and the 3 potential engine providers General Electric, Rolls-Royce, and Pratt & Whitney are under contract for the initial prototype phase of the competition, which will culminate in November, with each manufacturer creating an initial digital design specifying how their respective engine would integrate with the B-52. Incumbent Pratt & Whitney now plans to offer the PW815, but the company has also advocated a life extension for the existing TF-33s as an alternative to buying new engines. Rolls-Royce will offer a version of its the F-130 engine and has promised to build a manufacturing facility in Indianapolis, Indiana, if it wins the B-52 re-engine effort. Meanwhile, GE Aviation indicated it could put forward either the CF-3410 or its Passport engines. The level of detail of the virtual prototypes won't reach the level of a preliminary design, said Jim Croning, Boeing's B-52 Modernization Program Manager, but it will provide the Air Force with a better idea of how the 4 candidate engines will mate with the cowling that surrounds the engine and the strut that attaches the engine to the wing. Using digital modeling, we also try to understand what the performance of the engine is, he said. So understanding whether the missions can replicate what the B-52 can do today, and also understand what the life cycle reliability, maintainability impacts are. Since the TF-33 engines were developed in the late 1950s, they are not outfitted with the sensors of modern engines, which can monitor the health of the system or diagnose a problem before it occurs, Arnold said at Barksdale AFB. We may see an indicator of an issue, but we don't know how long until it's going to fail until it actually does. In my world, we would like to prevent the failure from interrupting scheduled training or a mission. I would like to know if I need to take that aircraft down out of the schedule and give it a new engine ahead of time, she added. We could prioritize, we could understand the patterns of the engines in a way that we could maintain them better. And hopefully the new motor, whoever designs it, will have a